Hello and welcome back to the Girl Fit Method podcast. So, on today's podcast episode, I have the incredible Erin. Erin is a past client of ours who's been worked with us for off and on for quite some time, and I'm so excited to have her on the podcast for her to share her story. Welcome, Erin.
Hello.
How are you going? How are you
you?
feeling? I'm good.
I'm good. Thank
First
you.
podcast?
How are you? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, how are you feeling?
I feel a little nervous, but I'm all right.
That is a-okay, totally normal. Today's conversation is going to be really just delving into your own story and I guess like your relationship with food, your body, and how that's evolved over time. And I know it's
Yeah.
like it's a long, big story, but I know it's of like going to be of massive value and benefit to the listeners. So I want to kind of just dive in straight away. First of all, let's get to know you a little bit more. So tell us a bit about yourself. What do you do? What are you into? All of that.
The joyous questions asking who, what do you do? Well, I'm Erin. I am from Adelaide. I've lived here most of my life. I did spend a lot of time traveling with my family. We traveled the country when I was growing up, and so I spent a lot of time in a lot of different places and seen a lot, experienced a lot, and then we came back to Adelaide and pretty much been here ever since.
Awesome. And
um,
sorry.
yeah.
Sorry, where
No,
did you go to travel? Where did you live?
we actually lived in a bus.
Oh, wow.
So
Oh, okay. So you guys
we my dad had like built a motorhome. I was like 3 when we did our first trip. So we lived in that for a year and a half. Did like Northern Territory, Western Australia, South Australia, and then when I was 10, we did it again and then worked our way up like Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, and ended up living in Cairns for a little while. So yeah,
cool.
been around.
Yeah, literally.
It was great.
And so what are you doing at the moment?
I'm just currently finished my nursing degree, so thank goodness for that. So now I'm a registered nurse and just doing my grad year at the moment in a med surgical ward. So it's been very, very busy and lots of learning, but yeah, getting the hang of it.
Yeah, in Australia here, we have such a shortage of nurses, not necessarily actual nurses, but the government. Let's not go into this too much, but
Oh God, no.
unfortunately, funding in our hospitals here is actually terrible. So
Yeah.
our medical staff are just like on overdrive, working crazy amounts of hours, which I know you did throughout your time with me as well. And it is so hard to just have a normal life outside of work when you're doing night shift and then doing, shifts all day, you're on your feet. Like it's actually so bad.
It is, and it's really hard to find that balance between, maintaining a healthy like diet and trying to get in a normal exercise routine. Like when that's something that your focus is so strongly in at this point in time, and the shift work and the stress during the shifts as well lately have really taken a toll at times, but we're all in the same boat at the moment, and we just got to keep on pushing on.
Yeah, I think it's just so important to be realistic with the expectations you place on yourself with how your lifestyle is. And I say this so much with our girls. We actually have a lot of women that are shift workers and that are nurses, and they struggle with the same thing. And it's like, well, listen, if you are sleep deprived because you've just worked overnight, like you need to be realistic with how many times a week you're going to be able to train. Or actually, is a training session right now going to do you like more bad than it is good because your body's already stressed and fatigued? And that can be really difficult, but it's about balancing and finding out kind of how fitness and nutrition can add to your life in those aspects, as opposed to it draining more of your energy and really just making you run on empty. And it's really hard.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because even throughout my degree, like I was so busy working 2 jobs at the time, studying, and I look back on it now and I'm like, how the hell did I manage to do that? on top of trying to like maintain my own health and a social life, and it just yeah, it's been tricky, but it's
Yeah.
where I want to be. And I guess trying to manage with training as well, it's been a very touch and go process.
Yeah. I think sometimes like just it doesn't, like we have to take away energy from our health sometimes at different
Yeah.
seasons in our life. And although that's not ideal, is if we can look at it like, this is just for a short period of time. We really always want to make sure that we're prioritizing our health, but sometimes it's just like survival. Like we just need to get through this season of our life so that we then have more time to be able to focus on ourselves and actually looking after ourselves. But the problem is sometimes we don't do that, and it just prolongs year after year after year after year. And that's how you can end up really unwell and burnt out, which is not a great place to be in. So, but
No.
let's dive into your story a little bit more. So,
Sure.
I know that you have struggled with an eating disorder in the past. What I would love
Yes.
for us to do is kind of go back to when you really became aware of your body and wanting to change that.
Oof. um well, I guess like so I was about 12 when I really noticed that I was struggling with something, but at the time I didn't realize what it was. It was just something that just started unraveling bit by bit. Um, I just started high school, and um, I don't know, maybe it was like the stress of that, and um, yeah, adapting to a new world. um, yeah, I found myself like exercising like more than normal, and then it just turned into like skipping. It was simple things like skipping breakfast. And I just thought that was something that I just chose to do it in my head at the time, but eventually it became a thing, and it became a habit, and it became a daily I guess.
Well, it's
Not
like a
Yeah, I don't know,
ritual
it just
almost. Yeah.
yeah. It's actually weird like diving back there, because you spend like, I was been in recovery for like so long, and then you kind of take a step back and you unravel all the layers again, and you're just like, whoa, it's a lot
Yeah.
there.
What always fascinates me is like, say, in your experience, you were 12 when you
Mm.
started to try to change the way that your body looked. Like, what made that thought even pop into your head?
Mm.
Why did you even think
Um,
that?
yeah, it's it came from like at the time, like I had, your young boyfriends and stuff like that, and we'd broken up, and all of a sudden, like, being in a new school, new people, it was something as simple as them saying that I was fat, like after a breakup. And at the time, it didn't bother me. Like I was sort of like, oh, okay. And then gradually, like there was a few people saying things here and there, and it just started like coming up in conversations more. And it was just words that started to slowly sit in my mind a little bit more. And I guess that's where maybe my body was like, oh, maybe if I skip this or don't have that or do this a bit more, like that's where the pattern, I guess, sort of started for me.
Mm.
Um, because I never like I did have a little body issue like when I hit puberty, because I hit it early and everyone around me wasn't getting boobs and things like that. And I was, and I was sort of a bit, self-conscious. And so I was already kind of hyper aware of my physical body. And then having someone highlight, that to me, I guess did something, and it went from there.
Made you even more self-conscious. And it's funny
Mm,
because like it's like you transitioned into more of a woman, like you hit puberty so much
yeah.
younger than your peers. And it's so normal that when that does happen, your body fat percentage increases because women,
Yeah.
as opposed to young girls, need to be holding more body fat on them, right? So
Mhm.
that then had probably already made you feel self-conscious. And then you've got people saying comments that are not helpful, and you know what can be just a passing comment from somebody, for that
Yeah,
person
and that's
can stay
actually
with
all
them.
they were. Yeah. Yeah, it was just, and it just it's something that so many people go through when you hit high school and stuff. And I didn't realize that I was one of them at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did that kind of, as time went on, what sort of did that look like? How did the eating disorder get more destructive? What was your life like? What were your thoughts like? Did you find that you kind of were isolating or thinking really negative
Yeah.
about yourself? Kind of where did that all go within high school?
I was always more of the quieter person in school. Like I wasn't involved in bigger crowds. I just sort of kept my own little circle. But I did find myself like almost having two selves. One that I would give everyone, and then the person that I would come back to when I got home. And it was when I come home that's when I would let those sort of thoughts fester into something more. And I'd sit with it and start to believe it. And I guess that's when I started. We lived on 5 acres, and at the time I just started doing a couple laps around the property, and then all of a sudden it would turn into 10, 12, 14 laps every night. And then I'd pretend like I never did it. And, I'd have people come like, oh, like, why are you puffed out all the time? And I'm like, oh, I just went for a walk. But I completely dismissed everything that I was doing at the time. And yeah, like I really sort of retreated in to myself and didn't really, I never ever shared it like until
Mm.
later on in life. Yeah.
It sounds like it was really secretive, which is like so
It
normal with
was.
eating disorders.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so much shame and stigma around it. So, like, the behavior that you're doing is somewhat not healthy, but also
Yeah.
it's like, well, I need to be able to trust somebody to tell them how I'm
Yeah.
actually feeling. And when you're young, sometimes you don't even know what you're feeling. Like you said, you didn't really recognize that it was disordered eating or these were habits
No.
that were unhealthy. It's kind of like you just have these thoughts and now you're acting on these thoughts. And before you know
Mm.
it, you've created all of these terrible habits for yourself and you're in
Yeah.
so deep and you didn't expect to be in the position that you're in, but it's kind of like, okay, well,
Definitely
how do you
not.
get yourself out? Yeah. So did you at this
Yeah.
point reach out for help at all?
No. um, well, in a way, like back then, I think it was when like Tumblr had come out, and like I'd spent so much time, like I lived on it, and through that, I ended up, coming across blogs and people that were going through very similar things, and you found like a comfort in recognizing that okay, these people are going through the same experiences or are suffering with anxiety and things like that. And I guess back then I didn't realize how detrimental that was going to be
Mm.
to me, because it kind of fueled it even more, and made me feel like, okay, well, this is a normal thing to be going through. And it was something that was secretive and kept hidden, and you didn't talk about it because it was, I don't know, wrong
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
same time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
almost like you feel like it's a reflection on you as a person.
Mm.
Yeah.
And like in the beginning, it was more just disordered eating and stuff, but then it developed into a full blown eating disorder. And I didn't realize until I was about 18 that, yeah, I developed bulimia and was struggling really, really bad. But even then, I was still too afraid to speak out and seek help. And I thought that was going to be my life. It's really sad looking back at it, actually. Not feeling like I had beautiful people around me at the time that were going to help and everything. The ones that did know, but I wasn't ready.
Mm.
You know, it was something that I felt safe in and
Mm.
comforted in.
Mm.
It was like a protecting coping mechanism for life, I suppose.
I was just about to say
Yeah.
that for you, it had become a comfort to you. And the thing is when when you attach your identity to something, it becomes
Yes.
a part of you. And so losing that when you feel like you don't even know who you are, to lose
Yeah.
that part of you, it's kind of like, who are you left with? And that's a
Yeah.
really hard thing to face. And, I see this so much with our girls is around the fear of letting go of things that are no longer serving you. And it's so strange because you know that this thing is no longer serving you. It doesn't need to be an eating disorder. It could be absolutely any habit that you know is damaging.
Completely.
But it is so hard to let go of it. And
it is.
It takes a lot of help. So how did you get to the position where you were like, okay, I need to get some help for this and I'm willing to make some changes?
Well, at the time, like, I had a very supportive person, and we ended up like not being in our lives anymore. And I blamed myself because of the bulimia. Like, I believed that caused that to be happening, kind of thing.
Right.
And I felt very trapped. So I did spiral down even further into it, which made it even harder to get back out of. But I was at uni one day and I saw like one of those study advertisement things in the back of the toilet door. And I was like, oh, it's an eating disorder study. And they were doing like therapy sessions. And I just thought, well, I'll give it a go and just see if it would help, because it was something that I didn't know and no one else would know that I was going to it. So yeah, I did 12 sessions with them, and we sort of unraveled like why I was doing certain things, and it came down to, I guess, particular people in my life and how I perceived myself. And yeah, we just started doing a lot of like mindful techniques and inner child stuff, like really getting to the root of like why I retreated into binging, purging. Yeah, because that was a repetitive thing that, I did it all the time, and I just thought it was something, I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
So to be where I am now is pretty cool.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. And a huge part of your journey was understanding, and you touched on some people in your life that were actually exacerbating, I guess, the condition, that weren't supportive for whatever reason, unfortunately. And that just adds another layer of complexity into things. So like here you are knowing, okay, I need to start sorting this out. I need to start treating myself better. I need to get some professional help, which is amazing. And then you have people in your life that are trying to bring you back down. How on earth do you manage that?
It's triggering at times, because you're trying to do the right thing and step out of what you know is safe and comforting, but is also very self-destructive and very unhealthy. And I did find that really hard to manage, because you're around these people all the time and you have to deal with their expectations, their assumptions, their judgments, things like that. And it's something that, I still work with every day, but acknowledging it and finally like accepting that that's something that you're just going to have to move forward with as you grow. And just
it's hard. It's the toxic people in your life that you can't get rid of. And I'm just going to share a story of a client of ours who's happy for me to share this story, who had a family member who was a parent who was incredibly negative about her body. Actually just made a TikTok about it today, around being telling her she shouldn't be eating certain foods when she was younger, and that she was gaining too much weight. And my jaw dropped, like, what on earth? Like, these harmful comments weren't even coming from a place of concern. It was almost nastiness. And it's like, in that situation, when you've got someone that close to you, people go, just cut those people out of your life. However, how do you do
like
that?
It's so easy.
Yeah. How do you do that
exactly.
when that's blood? It's much more difficult. And it's It's really difficult, and it's about setting boundaries, but also understanding that maybe you can't completely cut that person out, but you need to set up boundaries in your own life and come up with coping mechanisms to, when they say certain things, that you remind yourself that that's not true, and understand that that person clearly has issues, for whatever reason. If they're feeling the need to do that to you, that's a reflection of who they are.
Yeah, exactly. It's not actually about you as a person.
No.
It speaks volumes now that when you're aware of it, you can really recognize certain comments or certain traits that other people have that you feel are directed at you. And at first, your first reaction is to be like, oh, that is reflected at me. It is about me. And that's real and that's true. But when you sit with it and unravel it again, you're just like, actually, no, it's got nothing to do with me.
Yeah. It has everything to do with them. Absolutely everything to do with them. So I want to touch on your transformation, because it was absolutely incredible. And I am beyond proud of you. Can I just say to all the listeners that Erin is probably one of the most empathetic, kind-hearted, beautiful souls out there, and to see her in a position where she's looking after herself and you're so much kinder to yourself, honestly just makes my heart leap. So I just want to tell you, I'm honestly genuinely like, I'm getting emotional, but you deserve like everything, all the good stuff. And
thank you.
You're in such a good place now. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, obviously I reached out like to you. When was it? Would have been just before Christmas, I think.
You were so scared. You were terrified. It was so funny. I knew you were just like, I knew you knew that you had to do it, but you were petrified. And I was like, as soon as she takes the first step, I know she's safe with me. Like, she's safe, but she needs to just take that leap of faith. Yeah. And you did.
I knew that it was up to me to be like, hey, I'm ready now.
Yeah.
And please like help me. And I knew you were waiting for me to be ready and to do it. It was just biting the bullet and being like, excuse my French, but like, fuck it, just do it.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Like everything that I was doing, like I was, I'm recovered now, and I've had, I have up and down moments where, stages of things with life and everything where you're sort of like, oh, and then, you're not sure where you're going with things, and you sort of feel like you're like stagnant and my progress isn't changing. And I just knew that like I wasn't in a bad place when I came to you, but I knew that I could be so much more with your help. But I just needed that push and then the guidance to help me get there.
Yeah. And and
I feel like we totally nailed it.
Oh my gosh, did we nail it? Like, your transformation was incredible. So when you came to us, you had a lot of gut issues, you've had hormonal issues as well. And then there was obviously the goal of the aesthetics, right? So weight loss. But I always say this to the girls that come to us that do have those issues. If you don't address those, weight loss is going to be really difficult. And so we were able to really work on your digestion as well as your hormonal health. And then the rest just fell into place. And the beautiful thing was that with all of that, it was your mindset shift. It was the mindset that, no, I'm going to set myself up for long-term success. I need to implement new habits in my life that serve me, that are going to serve me for the long term. I need to be kinder to myself and actually like myself, which is what you did. And that's when the results came.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy, like when I think back at it, because like when I started, I'd gone through all those issues with, so I guess stepping back before I came to you, like I had all that weight gain with being on contraception, and that really, it did stuff with my head quite a lot. And I'd always suffered from IBS, and I think all these things were not a like just a replica, what's the word I'm looking for, it's sort of like a repercussion of what I'd
of your eating disorder. Yes.
So losing that weight, and then coming to you with the intention of going, hey, like my goal is weight loss, but in my head now it wasn't in the mindset that I did have. It was purely for my health and to feel more me again, And I feel like I definitely have gotten there, and I can only keep going, keeping on, kind of thing.
Well, you've created new habits, like your
Yeah.
previous habits that you just relied on. And like the thing is health is so holistic.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to any kind of like weight loss, let's just say, like it needs to be holistic. If it's not holistic, you're not going to sustain those results. And that comes down to changing those habits, right? The way that you
Yeah.
even think about food. People forget about the psychology of food. Like
Oh,
majority of people cannot achieve the goals that they want when it comes to their body because of their relationship with food. But we
yeah.
don't want to deal with that because that's the hard
No.
stuff. We just want to go
Yeah.
on the next fad diet and mask and band-aid the real core issue. And until you deal with that core issue, trust me, you will get to your end goal. That's easy. But the
Yeah.
hard bit is actually digging deep and doing the hard work and changing those habits.
Yeah, and that isn't a straightforward process. Like, it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of stepping back and sitting with things that you thought you were okay with or you've gotten over, and it's really uncomfortable. And I really struggled with that because it meant that I had to face the things that I didn't think were going to come out in the real world. Like, I didn't want people to perceive me as someone that had gone through that, or had dealt with mental health issues in the way that I had done growing up, when I didn't really have that foundation as a child. Like, a lot of
Yeah.
people talk about that, and I didn't have that growing up, but I still ended up going through these things. And now here, like, the transformation from, I guess, I think back, and I'm always thinking back to when I was 18, and then now being 26, it's just a huge shift. And I've just found, like I listen to myself now, and I'm in tune with myself, and I'm always checking in because I'm so hyper aware of everything.
Yeah.
Um, and that can be a good and bad thing for me, but it's something it's who I am.
Yeah, it's a mix between listening to yourself but not letting anxiety drive you, because sometimes we can
Oh
overthink
yeah,
things.
100%.
Yeah,
Oh,
and that balance
you
is
know that.
hard. That balance is so difficult, and I think we're all learning that all of the time. But if the foundation there is that you're wanting to make decisions in your life because you care about
Yeah.
yourself and you want the best for yourself, then that's really all we need. And
Mhm.
I know how hard you've worked, and like I said, like if anyone deserves the best, it's you. And just so proud of all that you've accomplished. It's really been such a blessing to be able to guide you and just see your transformation and your change. So well done.
Yeah, thank you.
And I know this conversation, it is really hard because it takes vulnerability to be open and honest. And something,
Yeah.
I think it was Brene Brown in one of her books. Anyone listening, go listen. I listened to her audiobooks. She is
Does she have
incredible.
a does she have a thing on
Podcast?
Netflix?
Oh, yes, she does. Yes, that
I
is,
think I've seen that.
it's
Yeah.
amazing. She talks about shame a lot. And
Yes,
when we
that's the
are,
one.
yes, when we're fearful of being vulnerable, it's usually because we still have shame attached to the thing that we're vulnerable about. So
Yeah.
we view that thing, and let's just say in your case, it's an eating disorder, as a part of you. But when you disconnect that, that's no longer a part of you. You have this freedom to be able to be vulnerable about this thing, knowing it's not who you are. And in fact, this thing now is going to help better the life of somebody else, which is truly why we go through stuff. There's always a silver
Yeah.
lining, and we want to be able to pass on our hurts and our lessons so that someone else doesn't make the same mistakes as we do. But unfortunately, sometimes shame holds us back from doing that. So I want to say that
Yeah.
takes a lot of courage, and you've obviously disassociated that, right? You're not that person.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think shame for me has been the biggest emotion, along with like guilt,